Welcome back to These Are the Days podcast. We have been married 10 years, a decade. Babe, does it feel like a decade?
Yeah, I would say yeah.
You think it does? I would say a lot has happened.
After having gone, like, kind of taken some time to like review things in the past like weeks since our anniversary, I feel like it feels longer.
Yeah. I feel like
as the day was approaching, I didn't feel like that. But then we look back through pictures and videos, and like when we watch our wedding video and stuff, I'm like, oh yeah, we were really young, and that does feel like a long time ago. But
I totally agree. I feel like a lot has happened, but it doesn't feel like 10 years to me. Like it doesn't feel like a decade.
Mm-hmm. Also, we've known each other for almost 15 years.
Yeah.
Which is crazy.
Yeah, for this, it would be 15.
15 in January.
In January, yeah. Wow, crazy. So we're gonna talk about 10. We wrote it down on a piece of paper here.
Because we're old school and we like to write things.
A few minutes ago. 10 things that I don't know, that we want to share, that we learned about marriage, that we feel like has held our marriage together and actually made it better now than it ever has been. And so, yeah, we're gonna get into it. It's gonna be fun. One thing we did do, or you want to tell him, babe?
What do I tell him?
That we watched.
Oh,
that I don't think I've actually watched.
So we watch our like wedding video that our videographers at our wedding made every year. If you're new here, just in case you don't know, our wedding was actually televised. So we had like a videographer for our wedding. Then we had the film crew there filming our wedding. So we had the show episode for Little People Big World, and then we had our own like videography video. So we watch the videography video every year with our kids. We started watching it with the kids too. They call it the wedding movie. But this year we decided to watch the actual show episode with Ember. I think Ember was the only one of our kids that was awake.
Yeah.
Bodhi for a little bit. And we've seen the show episode before, but they also did and we kind of forgot this, a 2-hour episode where it was like us watching our wedding after the fact and kind of like recapping it, and we forgot that we did that.
I don't think I've actually ever.
Jared says he's never seen it, but we did see it because we used to watch everything before it aired. They used to show it to us so we could like prove it.
Yeah, I remember.
So we did see it, but it's been so long, and so it's just really funny to watch that, like hear our commentary about our wedding. It
was awesome.
I think it was really cool. Another like kind of just cool contrast thing for us was like my brother got married. Just got married a week before our 10-year anniversary. So being at like a wedding, at someone's wedding day that's super close to us, and experiencing that, and then 1 week later reminiscing on your own wedding, and just kind of reminiscing on your own wedding a little bit at that wedding too. It's just like kind of crazy. But we both said, like, looking back on our wedding, that like a lot of people when they look back on their wedding, they're like, I don't know if I would have done that, or I can't believe I wore that, or why did we choose to do this?
The event is actually embarrassing.
And like we loved our wedding. Even looking back, I'm like, I love my dress. I love the bed sheet from Goodwill bridesmaid dresses. I love the quilted hay bale seating. I love the 40 covered in beer hops that we were driving down the freeway at 10 p.m.
My suit, when I was making
45 miles an hour.
When I was making my suit, the guy's like, so what's your color theme? And I was just like, floral. Like deadpan.
Said it so matter of fact, the guy's like,
I'm like, really? Okay.
And like watching Zach crack up about that too was so funny because he was like, floral? That's what do you mean?
Anyways, it was really fun.
It was very us. Like the day was very us. And like we always said that, we wanted to spend more time. It was like, this was kind of like the premise, like statement of our New York Times bestselling book was like, we want to spend more time preparing for our marriage than our wedding day, which is something that I feel like we did. Like we really did spend a lot of time preparing for marriage in the most stressful time of our life, those 5 months of being engaged leading up to our wedding. But we also had a freaking epic wedding. And looking back, it's just cool to like be like, yeah, that day was such a representation of us in all of our quirkiness and all of our intentionality and all of our creativity and all of our fun and energy. Like it just really represented us and still does, I think, even 10 years later in so many ways. So anyways, it was just special to watch that.
It was cool.
What's something that you were most surprised by in watching that?
I would say the collective, there was just so much, like it was heavy with love.
The day.
Mm-hmm. And even just watching it back, like you could see it in people's faces. You could sense it with how someone talked. And I just remember it feeling like this dense truth was happening. And watching it back, I still feel that.
Mm-hmm. And weren't you surprised by or no, you probably weren't surprised by the tearing up of the yard and the...
Oh no, some of that was really funny though. Like what my dad and I did to the farm, to the space. Like I don't remember it being that hectic, and I was just laughing. So I'm like, I can't believe we did that, all of it. But yeah, it was fun.
I still look back on that as being like those 5 months that was some of the most stressful months of my entire life still.
Totally. Yeah.
Like we were still in school. We were living in different states. We were filming. We were applying for jobs. We were trying to find housing in Los Angeles. We were getting ready for our wedding. We had a 5-month engagement, super short.
It was crazy. It was totally crazy.
But we got through. Anyways, 10 years of marriage. So we're going to share 10 things that we feel like are, we need to like have a moment.
Yeah.
But yeah, 10 things that we just, as we were talking before the episode, feel like are just like key things.
Philosophies, ideologies, ways of thinking, realities, not tricks, but just principles that we feel like we have intentionally committed to, adhered to, come back to, and used as like a grounding, tethered cord to truth that has kept us from swaying or veering too far off the road. Mm-hmm. So we're going to go through those 10 things.
Good. I love it. You start.
All right. I'll start. Yep. Okay. So we're going to go through these. First and foremost, a principle that we started with, we've always talked about, and we still believe in. We are on the same team. And we've repeated that many, many, many times. But it's so much more than like just a statement. Like when you look at a team, what is a team? Like if someone falls down, you help them up, right? If someone, it is in your best interest for every single person on your team to be at their optimum self, premium health, know exactly what they're doing. And you actually sacrifice yourself so that the other person can do that. Because in doing so, they will then do the same to you. And then you do nothing but spiral upwards into health or into success or winning, whatever the analogy may be. What do you want to say about being on the same team?
I was just going to say, like, I feel like the reason that one came to mind first as the first one to write down is just that it has become increasingly more important to stay at the forefront now that we have kids and now that our kids are getting older. Like
totally.
The health of your family team is completely contingent on the health of your marriage team. And so if you haven't practiced a healthy marriage team before you have kids, like it's going to be really hard to have a healthy family team. And I think like now that your kids are team players in your family unit, they're looking to us as the coaches. And if there's like discord between the coaching staff, not good,
Totally.
And also if the coaching staff is putting each other down or not affirming each other in front of the team, like I just feel like it like encompasses so much more now that we have kids being on the same team. Like how important is it that our kids see that you're always telling me like, wow, mom, this is a great dinner. Like that their kids see you affirming me.
Yeah, totally.
It's just like saying, nice kick, good goal or like affirming each other in a game. Like,
and every single person on the team is going to play in a different position. And so when we like look at our kids, we see these different positions and we get to like train them uniquely and give them unique attention in specific areas, or like, wow, coach needs a break. Like rest of the team, let's huddle up and bring mom breakfast in bed or whatever it is. So it's like
totally.
The team analogy is like you said, Audrey, is increasingly becoming vital as we parent and go forward in that journey. But back to the marriage thing, common courtesy. I mean, there's so many elements of that make up a healthy team. But if you start thinking about your marriage as a team, I think all of the analogies, you don't even need to be told them. They'll just start to come. And you'll start to realize, oh, wow, like a house divided among itself cannot stand. it's so true. And so the team framework, all you need to do is not think about marriage, think about love, think about health, just think about a team and how a team functions and operates. And then you overlay that onto your marriage and things will start to click and make sense. So
one more thing I'll add that we just didn't like cover, but I feel like is encompassed in the team thing is like so much of conflict in marriage is because you decide that you're not on the same team, that you're on opposing teams.
Totally.
Or you forget, you don't decide.
Yeah.
You forget that you're on the same team. Like truly. I mean, we forget all the time that we're on the same team.
Well, and you might not just forget, you might actually are being told that by how the other person's acting.
Yeah.
And then it's this spiraling out of control of nobody thinks they're on the same team. But like you might be thinking that not just because you forget, but because I'm actively treating you like we're not on the same team.
Right. Because there's opposing, like there's always things that are coming in that are going to affect your marriage, but like you're just inevitably going to like, not inevitably, the hope is that you don't do this, but like sometimes our spouse is the person that sees the worst of us, right? They see the best of us and they see the worst of us. So like that worst of us side is going to come out when we see our spouse as our opponent, which generally happens because there's other things that are opponents to our marriage coming in and it's displaced. We're displacing that
super good
attack on our spouse, you know?
Totally.
And so I think just like the conflict, like it really does just reminding each other that we're on the same team. Like I go back to like, I think this is like one of the things that our premarital counselor has told us, like just this simple act of like reaching over and being like, we're on the same team. Just literally saying that to each other.
Even that right there.
Is like, just like a, like,
it
helps so much. Just like Jeremy and I still a decade into marriage remind each other of that all the time.
We could do an entire episode on all of the ways that this phrase, I think, affects us and has affected us and continue to affect us. Yeah.
I just had a thought. Like, I hope that our kids like see us doing that to the point where like they do that as siblings. Like, can you imagine if we saw like, I just had like a little mini daydream. Can you imagine if we saw like Bodhi say to Rad, like, we're on the same team, Rad? You know, like, and they're having conflict about something.
They have.
Because think about that. Kids have that all the time, but they're not really having conflict. It's just they're frustrated because something's happening.
Yeah.
But like, just again, it goes back to like the model that you're setting is then.
Totally.
Sorry, am I too far?
No, you're fine.
Anyways, that's enough on that. But like Jared said, we could probably go on.
Yeah. Okay. Principle of sharing. We've talked about this a lot. We still stand by this as well. It's been so fun pursuing the principle of sharing. What is the principle of sharing? The principle of sharing is the concept, the idea, the principle that if your spouse loves something or doesn't love something, there might be something in it to love or a reason not to love it. And I've added that not to love. We've traditionally always just talked about the things to love, but also I think of like in recent years, the sensitivity and the spirit to certain things of like, I don't think we should do that anymore. Or I don't think we should consume that or program ourselves with that anymore.
The giving up of things, sharing and the giving up.
Yep, exactly. The giving up of things is just as important and vital as the sharing or the taking on or the starting of things. And so the principle of sharing is basically this concept of
it's good.
The more things you share, the more bound together you are. So the principle of sharing would be to the degree in which you have shared is to the degree in which the strength or the bond is. So, you know, pinky sharing, you're going to break it. Obviously, there's always a pursuit of stronger, healthier, and more unity, oneness, strength, all the things with the principle of sharing. And so, that's been a super fun, profound principle that we've always pursued.
And for those that maybe are, you know, newer to hearing this concept, which most of you probably aren't, just because we've been talking about it for so long and it's still so important, but like some examples of that are, you know, early on in our marriage, I was gluten-free. I was gluten-free for 6 years. I couldn't eat all these certain things. But instead of me cooking a different meal for Jared every night, like Jared just kind of adopted that diet because principle of sharing. Like,
you're gluten-free, we're gluten-free.
We're going to do it together, you know. But then like here we are spanning 10 years later, Jared decides to stop drinking. And so again, like principle of sharing, I decided to stop drinking. Like actually it wasn't really like, you can go watch you can listen to the podcast episode on the drinking thing. But again, just like sharing in these like shifts that we have as individuals, because Like another this is like such a simple example, but I think so many couples like just watch different TV shows. Like at night after they put their kids to bed, like one likes to watch these kind of things, another likes to watch these kind of things, or read these kinds of things and read other things, or scroll one narrative and scroll a different narrative. And it's like, if you're never coming together to give each other glimpses into what you're consuming too, like whether it's for entertainment, whether it's for education, whether it's mindless, like if you're not getting on the same page about that, like you got to share in those things too. And so I think just people often like don't recognize how little things they are sharing in over time, because they just kind of like get caught up in their lanes. And then like, I mean, we know a lot of older couples that don't even share in friends, and they get to a stage in life where like he has his friends, she has her friends, and like
Satan is a profound incrementalist, as they say, which is just the idea of like incremental, innocent, seemingly nothing decisions stacked up over time, the compounding interest of two directions. If you're off by a degree in 10 years, a degree a year is 10 degrees in 10 years, right? Like you could find yourself very far apart unless you're either going away or together. There is no parallel straight lines in nature. And so it's like, you're either slowly or not slow, what's the opposite? It's quickly moving together or apart. And so that's basically the principle of sharing in a nutshell.
One more thing though that I want to say about that, I just think is an interesting like component of it is like, if you're practicing the principle of sharing, it's going to get you to try new things, which I think grows you as an individual and human being.
Yeah, like I'm a runner. I'm a runner now.
Like when you practice the principle of sharing, it actually, like, the cliche saying like, oh, we make each other better. But like when you practice the principle of sharing, you truly do make each other better, because you're constantly giving each other an invitation to try something new. And I think that is a good and healthy thing for an individual, not just a marriage.
Yeah, totally.
So anyways, okay.
Next, number 3.
Be students of each other, which is just a fancy way of saying like always be learning each other, be curious about each other, ask questions. You guys know we're huge proponent of question asking, because question asking is you being curious, which is you being a student of your spouse. And Jeremy, when we were watching our wedding video, like one of the things he said in his vows to me was, I promise to love the new version of you every year. And that is just like a recognizing that like I will change every year. Jeremy will change every year. Yeah. And if we stop being students of each other when we get married, that's not good, Yeah, love, and a lot of people do that. It's like,
yeah, love is not marrying a finished product. Love is marrying someone in motion of becoming who they were meant to be.
It's good.
So you are a part of that journey of when you marry someone, you join in their journey of becoming who they are supposed to be. And this is the iron sharpening iron, all the analogies, alchemy and gold and all the things that are basically symbols and stories of transformation. It's, redemption, repent, all of the things. All of history tells this story, and marriage is obviously just like one of the greatest symbols and aids in that journey. But you're marrying someone because you are so stoked and excited for who they are becoming that you want in on the journey. Who said that? John Mark Comer, I think. Yeah, you want in on the journey, and you can't stand missing out on it. For sure. Yeah. So so often we get married and we just like, oh, you've changed, or again, there is no stagnation. Like everything is in motion. So so you are either growing together or growing further apart. So being a student of each other, I think we've done that. We've done that by the grace of God pretty well, and always allowed each other room to express our opinions. Like you could never say anything that I'm not going to think, I wonder why she's saying that.
Yeah. Totally.
Or I'm going to simply go,
because we're curious.
She's stressed out, so I'm just going to ignore this.
Yeah, totally.
But it also leads to like curiosity, and questions lead to curiosity. Like you can't be a student without questions and curiosity. And so why are you thinking that? Why are you feeling that? Or like, here's a question. And questions, again, one reason we love questions, and we were trained really well in asking questions with the Marriage Journal. It just forces you not only to share what you're thinking, but forces a posture of also listening, which most people don't know how to do. Most people can't listen. We listen with the intent of responding instead of actually being able to look at someone genuinely curious about what they're saying or what their thoughts are. But anyways, don't need to belabor the point. But
no, it's good.
Be students of each other. Man, that's a big one for us. All right. What's next? Honesty, integrity, of course, forgiveness, communication.
Whoa. You just
sorry, that's all. That's all under number 4.
It's all under the umbrella of honesty, though.
Oh, okay, yeah. So honesty, yeah, for sure.
I feel like that was the thing that we kind of encompass. Like if you're being honest with each other, then it's going to lead to forgiveness. It's going to lead to communication, which we're big proponents of. And it's going to make you have high integrity, which is also super important in marriage.
Yeah. And integrity is like, not just, I mean, integrity is, I think, the single most powerful state of a human being.
Yeah. It's the highest frequency, isn't it?
Yeah. It's the highest frequency. It's the largest, heat wave mapping or aura or whatever you want to call it. Like, it's the highest signal strength that we've detected on whatever that machine is called. I think that was like a 30-year study. We should link to that study because I think it's one of the most fascinating insights into the energy conversation. But yeah, integrity is when like your yeses are yeses and your nos are nos. That is trust, and trust is obviously associated with vulnerability, and vulnerability. So it's just like the ladder. It's like the doorway to everything else. You cannot have vulnerability unless there's trust, and you can't have trust without honesty. It just starts there. And so like having these things that you write down and put around your home is so important, because it's constantly bringing your awareness and your programming back to these truths that you want to be about. This is why we make so much of what we do, is like, how do we get people to document, record, and write down and program themselves with the life that they want?
Yeah. Good.
So often people leave their program.
That's a different way to say it than we said it, I feel like.
Yeah, they leave their programming to the world or to what they're consuming. And like, if you watch something and it's a bunch of distrust and dishonest and crazy stuff, and you don't think that you're going to bring that subconscious programming into your marriage, you're running a fool's errand. Like, it's just ignorance. We absolutely 80% of what we do is subconscious. That's insanity. That means our habits, routines, thoughts, and just the way the body moves, around 20% of it is conscious, or you're actually being a free thinking agent. Most of the time we're NPCs, non-player characters, just doing life.
What? You're NPCs?
Yeah, NPCs is it stands for non-player character. Like in a video, it's kind of like a Matrix term. It's like when you're so lulled to sleep by the world. So an NPC is a video game term where, like, when you're playing
video game terms.
Well, no, because it relates to life. I believe a lot of like the biblical narrative is actually trying to explain this. Like, when you are of the world, you are programmed by the flesh, and you cannot break away from your 5 senses. You are then a slave to your flesh. You have not come into freedom or spirit, but like, you're essentially an NPC. You're just an agent of the matrix. So in video games, an NPC is a person in the game that's just a program.
Yeah. Okay.
Like the game. But you being the player, you are a free thinking cognitive agent, able to think for yourself, do what you want, and have these like...
So how does that tie to honesty?
Hold on. Have these autonomous decisions in the game, but you might be interacting with an NPC, a non-player character.
Okay, I get it.
And so a lot of people have like overlaid this onto reality, because there's a lot of people that just walk around as NPCs. Like, they're not actually thinking. They are not expressing that unique color of light flavor that God designed them to be. They're repeating the mainstream media news. They're doing all the things they're told to do. And there's just not there's not this, I would say, autonomous, vibrant, like, light. And so it's just a term. You can look it up. A lot of people...
What does that have to do with honesty?
Well, honesty, again, it's just, I don't know. I'm probably way off track now, rambling, but it's just it was the start of a lot of this. Like, if you don't start with honesty within marriage, you kind of just go down or if you don't adhere to honesty. Programming, because honesty, remember, we put stuff up that reminds us of honesty and all this.
Oh yeah.
Wow, big ramble there, but yeah.
Next, on to the next.
Next.
Oh wait, okay. I just saw my note. one more thing on honesty that I think is really important that kind of like factors in is if not just being honest with each other, but I also think like being honest about your marriage with other people, like having trusted friends that you can be honest, like, hey, how's your marriage? You know, and you can like honestly answer that with, whether it's girlfriends, guy friends, or like a marriage, like we talk about like our marriage parents or marriage like mentors or whatever, like being able to like honestly share with them the hard parts and the good parts of our marriage. I think is also super important. So not just with each other, but like just honesty around your marriage.
Yeah, giving people just windows into the chaos and
healthy. Okay, this is a big one. Traditions. So you may not think of like traditions as being in the top 10 of our marriage advice things, but I think that if you can bake traditions, obviously like this is something Jeremy and I are really passionate about. Like we love tradition. We love, like Jeremy said, capturing, archiving, celebrating, commemorating. And I think if you can have your own marriage and family traditions, those are things that like strengthen your marriage and family over time. Like when I think back and when you think back on your life growing up, what are some of your best memories? They're likely traditions. Like every 4th of July we did this. Every Christmas we did this. Good point, yeah. Like that is kind of the legacy that you remember, is like those things that you did every year that were like, that created a little bit more intentionality, but it was like a thing that you continued to do. Yeah. And so I think if you can create space in your life to have traditions weekly, monthly, and yearly at minimum, like for us, a weekly tradition of a date night or a weekly tradition of the marriage journal, a monthly tradition of like a longer date or a longer day or a time of planning, and a yearly tradition of an overnight away from our kids, or a yearly tradition of a marriage summit, like, or a yearly tradition of doing memories of Christmas or memories of us. These are the things that like strengthen your love legacy. You know, it's like having those traditions that are unique to you, because everyone has their own traditions that are unique to them, that make their marriage and their family feel fun, whether it's printing a Polaroid picture every year and turning it into a Christmas ornament and putting it on your tree, or writing anniversary letters every year on your anniversary. We just read our 10th anniversary letter to each other, you know, like those are the things that like make your relationship feel fun and exciting, and it gives you something that you're always looking forward to.
Yeah, okay, totally. Well, and I want to say, when a lot of people hear traditions, they get overwhelmed and they think, oh, I need to do this, spend this, and plan this, and that's not necessarily. It's going to
look unique for every person.
When you put yourself in the position of your kid or yourself back when you were a kid, like we were talking about this with some of our friends the other day. I was like, oh yeah, we always went camping. Like we had this big camping trip I'd go on with and then I thought about it. I was like,
we did that once.
I think we did that 3 times. Like I only remember going 3 or 4 times, yet in my memory, it's this like massive tradition that we did every year, and it was this big thing.
Yeah, so like, basically, like, don't, even if you start a tradition and you skip some years, like,
it doesn't matter. Just
keep doing it. Like, don't, you know, don't
Which
let
for
that
me, with
make you give up.
being, you know, one wing perfectionist type thing, I can tend to fall in the, like, if you miss it once, it's done. Like, it's over. Don't even think about picking that torch back up. But it's not necessarily the case.
But you're married to me.
But I'm married to you, who's done is better than perfect, with a percentage of like 50%.
Yeah.
Oh, sheesh.
That's good. We balance each other.
Yeah, we do. Okay.
Anyways, traditions.
Traditions, like important. They rally your family, and they rally you, and they're a tether to doing and being about something.
And it's also like, it ties back into like, you know, how Jeremy and I always talk about like, what kind of love story do you want?
Yeah.
And like the traditions are really the things that like, that's the story you're writing.
Again, when I look back on our life, if we don't have a tradition of our like yearly 2-night away, and it typically falls around our anniversary, so we use our anniversary as an intentional moment to make sure we do this thing.
Or Valentine's Day, because it's a halfway between our anniversary.
In 20 years, I'm going to want to look back and remember 20 amazing trips.
Yeah.
You know, and it might look different for everyone else, but that's what I want my love story to be about. I want to, and Audrey, you do a great job of holding us to that despite the chaos. I can tend to be more of like, let's just stay here.
We can't do it this year.
Let's just stay here and get stuff done on the property. Like, cause it stresses me out with all the projects, but it's good.
I'm a tradition. I love it.
Yeah, you are. Okay. This is This was one that I think the next one is one
This
that's
is
like,
you got to speak to this one.
I don't know. It's easy to say. And I think
This is your one. This was your marriage
Well,
advice you gave Jack and
on,
Ken
just
at the rehearsal
chill,
dinner.
babe. I know. Oh yeah, this was. I would say it wasn't until recent years, year 9 or 10 this year. No, it would be year 8 or 9 because we just hit 10. That I think this really started to come into focus, and I started to, I think, understand what the Bible was talking about and why.
You haven't said what it is yet.
To the humble belongs the kingdom, and that is humility. I wanted this to be ego, but Audrey said make it humility.
Because ego is not. It's not. You guys will understand, right? Like, it's just not like something that immediately connects for people in their brain. And like what you're really saying is humility. You can talk about ego because I know that's how you like to word it, but
yeah,
humility is really like.
Yeah, it is humility. But when we say humility, and maybe I'm behind the curve here, but like maybe it's just because I had a lot of pride to get out of the way.
Yeah.
But humility is obviously in direct opposition to pride. So you cannot, pride comes before the fall. To the humble belongs the kingdom. Like there's this direct opposite side of the spectrum with pride and humility. And to be humble is to get out of your own way, or to, as Jesus required or said to do, like to die to yourself. And I think we hear that and we go, okay, like I think conceptually I get what you mean, Jesus, but I'm still me. I'm still no. He didn't say but. He said die to yourself. Pick up your cross, follow me. That's the required. Like that is the okay. So that's really interesting. Like how do we actually do that? Obviously, it's not a physical thing we do, so it has to be emotional, mental, spiritual.
Yeah,
has to be all of these other deeper realities. And I think I've been like learning that a lot lately. And what does it mean? What is an ego, and what does it mean to be humble? And I would say in the last couple of years of marriage, we've seen just exponential growth in our relationship due to finding out and recognizing what ego actually is. It is the persona, the person, the avatar that you use to navigate through the world. The problem is most people identify with that, and that is who they are.
Yeah. And
then they put that, and when when the ego gets damaged or attacked or feels sad or hurt, it lashes. That's pride, because you're identifying with a thing, right? And I think this is the thing that needs to die. But when this dies, you don't die, because you are the one that's aware that you are an ego. Like you are aware of your nationality. You are aware that you have a name. You are aware of all of these things that make up the ego. And let me be clear, the ego is extremely necessary. We need it to navigate through the world, through this 3D matrix. Like we can't do that. Everything is spiritual without the ego. So the ego isn't necessarily all bad. It's just the thing that we all identify with, and then we defend that thing tooth and nail without realizing there's actually probably more to the story. There's identity, and there's deeper truths that I think Jesus was trying to get us to recognize and point to. But the second you can see your ego for what it is, it doesn't have power over you anymore. Like it does, all your fears start to come to light, and then humility starts to come through, and then you start to realize, wow, the ego is really just the rose-tinted glasses I see the world through. And my wife has an ego. She sees the world a certain way. So most of the time, our egos are fighting each other. But behind both of our egos are two souls that are destined for oneness and unity. And if we can return to that center and look at our ego and look at all the frivolity that it fights about and realize, oh, wow, let me just it doesn't matter. Like it's fine. And we love each other, and there's a deeper truth. I could keep rambling, but big, massive unlock for us. And it stemmed through trying to fix some of the stuff that comes to the surface through 10 years of marriage, realizing that so much of it was just our ego or our pride battling it out on the battlefield. Yeah. And we're the controller, the gamers behind the player, fighting in the video game or whatever, and not realizing, oh, if we just look across the room at one another, we're two souls like on a beautiful journey together.
On the same team.
Big one. whole podcast episode. Can't wait to have it. We should have someone on for it too that knows a lot more than I do.
Yeah, Emerson Eggerichs. I was just thinking the whole time you were saying that, I was like, we should have Emerson Eggerichs on here because I was thinking of like the square peg, round hole.
Yeah.
And like, or was his pink megaphone, blue headphones?
Blue.
Whatever. That whole analogy, like, it was just good.
Yeah.
Okay. Next one, unhindered time.
Yeah.
Which basically is just a fancier way of saying quality time together. But we like the word unhindered because it really means that like you're having time together that is like where time stops. Like it's centered, like it's where you are present. You're actually present. So it's not just time together where you're like planning the week or like talking out. It's time together where like it's the kind of time together that you spent when you were falling in love.
Yeah, yeah.
So, and it's like something that Jeremy and I always would say, like when we were falling in love, was like that we had so much unhindered time because we were young, 18, 19, not working in the summer and like just frolicking around, and like we had all this unhindered time where like time stood still because we felt like we were outside of time because time would just pass. Next thing you know, it'd be 3 a.m. in the morning, we'd be hanging out
and we'd be like, what the?
But it's like that's the kind of time that you still need to like you need to plan for so that you can be go ahead.
I was gonna say that state of love, the state of falling in love, most people, we lose the roadmap to get there, but that state doesn't go away.
Yeah.
The intensity fades with familiarity, but the place in which it exists is still real. Mm-hmm. We just forget how to get there.
Mm-hmm. Totally.
And how to so the question is, how do we return to that state of unhindered time that was so obviously present when you were falling in love?
Yeah.
C.S. Lewis says it really well. I think it's in Mere Christianity, but it's if a fish in water doesn't feel, what is it? If a fish in water doesn't feel wet,
it doesn't know it's wet.
Yeah, then that's where it's destined, or that's its home, or whatever. So how is it that the human feels not at home in time unless it was destined for timelessness, or that must indicate that time is not our home? And so
it's a bigger thing.
And so it's a bigger thing. But I totally butchered that, and I used to have that quote memorized.
I get what you're saying about the time.
The ego plays in time.
Yeah.
The ego exists in time.
Mm-hmm.
The player that's behind the ego, the soul, timeless. Mm-hmm. So how do we get to a spot where we can look at each other and still be with one another in timelessness? Like not totally eliminating the ego in the world, because there are real stresses, there are real problems, there are real things in life, but there has to be this way, this ability where we return to spirit, return to soul, return to source, and like interact with one another. That is timelessness.
And you know how we always say, like Christians always say like, oh, God exists outside of time. Christians always say that.
Totally. Yeah.
And I feel like that's like one of those things where it's like, okay, if God exists outside of time, should we go outside of time?
Yeah, let's go outside of time. How do we get outside of time?
How do we get present with God, who is outside of time?
Love it, babe. Exactly. Exactly. And
if we can go there together, that's oneness not only with each other, but that's oneness with God, which is the whole three thing.
And we share this from experience. We have had many experiences where time, the only way to really, words fail me in trying to convey this experience, but like it just doesn't exist. There is no time. And it's this deeply
present,
romantic,
totally
pleasant, present, enjoyable feeling in space. And again, it's the type of thing where like, I remember a few times, like, it could have been 3 minutes or it could have been 3 hours.
Who knows?
I genuinely could not tell you which one it was. But then like when you come back into time and like back in the ego having to do life, it's like the time is what it is at that point, and you're either late for something or you're not, but you just time warp. It's really bizarre. I hope we talk more about this crazy stuff this season, because
this I feel like the unhindered time thing, though, it's like we say that as one of the 10 things, but like we say that because you have to plan for it. You have to carve it into your life.
Yeah.
It's not something that's going to just happen. Like really.
Otherwise,
it just won't, because we're so programmed to be in time. We are like so programmed to operate in time.
Yeah, and we exist in this.
And there's too many things to do, and we have 4 kids, and
but like, die to the flesh, be reborn in spirit. Like the Bible's full. Maybe we'll get into a lot more of the biblical connection to this truth, but there's so many. The entire narrative, I think, is about this ability to see both worlds and how do the worlds interconnect. And again, if the 3D is physical, that's science. And then there's the spiritual, right? Which is, anyways. All right. So that's Unhindered time. Let us know if you're tracking with that, or like how we can articulate that better. Let us know in the comments below on YouTube. That'll be a fun space, I think, for me that I've never been in before, to kind of
because there's no comments on podcast audio.
I know, interact with you guys and see what we can clarify there, because we want to make this clear, because it's so exciting. Playfulness next. Life can get so.
That was a real great way to say that one.
Life can get so serious, and a lot of like the unhindered time and the principle of sharing, and a lot of these things that we just kind of talked about. You're probably.
Well,
better.
I think that another way that we've said this before, that maybe some of you guys are familiar with, like we said this in our little half marathon nuggets video thing, but spontaneity, suspense, and surprise, which falls under playfulness. Like if you are having spontaneity in your marriage, that's playful. If you are creating suspense in your marriage, that's playful. If you're surprising each other, that's playful. And I think those things, like not losing that sense of playfulness, it's the flirting with each other, it's the like doing things that are out of your comfort zone together, laughing at each other, like just it's the classic, like letting your kids see you dance in the kitchen, letting your kids see you being goofy together and like teasing each other and whatever. And I think the playfulness thing becomes more important when you have kids, because it's easy to lose that, right? It's easy to lose that when your schedules get busier and when you like have more kids and you have all these things. Like that's the first thing that's going to go, right? Playfulness happens when you're in the unhindered time space, or when you're like choosing to intentionally do it. But I think why it's so important, even in the midst of like the chaos, and especially of having more kids, is like playfulness is something that kids can connect to. So when your kids are seeing you play together, that's their world. Like all of a sudden they're seeing, like that feels healthy to them, you know, like that's what kids do all day, especially kids our kids' age. Like
it's their language.
They play and they want us to play with them. And so if you're being playful in your marriage, that's going to resonate with them. Like they will remember, like mom and dad operate on the same play. Like it's just this like thing that I think like is a connection piece for kids when it comes to like seeing their parents have healthy marriages, which is like the best piece of parenting advice is have a good marriage. It's the best thing you can do for your parenting. And so like I think just like making sure that you're either creating time and space for that, planning it, you know, just you can't lose sight of that. You have to have that playfulness. Like
and I want to be clear, like we are, if you don't know, like if you don't know, we're more of a serious couple. Like we
are, but we aren't.
Well, hold on.
We are, but we aren't.
Chill out for a quick microgram.
I think we say that about ourselves too much, but we actually aren't.
I think if you ask any of our friends, they will say, yeah, you guys are 80-20 serious.
Yeah, but we're like extremely playful. Like
I mean, that's
we have
true.
redneck parties at our house with obstacle courses and giant 4th of July party. We orchestrate our lives around playing, and we build a property around playing. And I think
I might have just gotten fact checked real time.
We have so much childlikeness in us that that's
true. But
we like to deep think too. Like it's a good.
Okay.
I feel like we're pretty balanced in that.
The point I was gonna lean back a little bit so we can see you because your mic's covering your face. The thing that I was going to say there is like some people might hear playfulness and they might like, some people are too playful and they never go serious.
Yeah.
Some people are very serious and they don't know how to go playful. What I'm trying to say is it's balance. We could easily tend to lean on the like, let's take care of life, crush the world, do the things, think, read, like the side of things, but we intentionally pull ourselves into the balance and we love it, but it's always, there's always a both and is what I'm trying to say. Anyways, I didn't even need to say that. I just asserted myself.
No, it's good.
Um,
Next one is having a mission. You got to have a mission
yeah.
for your marriage, for your family. Shameless plug. If you don't have one, Family Values Planner is extremely helpful for that. It literally will help you create your own family mission statement and family values. And this was like a huge unlock for us. It was taking our family values, which we made like a few years into our marriage. But a couple years ago, we tweaked them and aligned them to the months of the year. And this was like such a helpful unlock for us because all of a sudden now teaching our kids our family values became simplified to the months of the year. January, wonder and learn. February, love and communication.
And this
March,
goes
holistic
back
health. And so
hold on, this goes back to the team thing. There isn't a single team, company, organization, you name it, on the planet that doesn't have a values, mission statement, direction of where they're headed. How do we measure success? Like what makes this company or this business successful and what makes us unsuccessful? Yeah. And then we leave our families up to chance. And that's crazy to me. Like how is a kid going to know if their family, like if it's succeeding or not, or like what's the mission? What's the goal? What's the thing? So it ties back into that. Anyways, big unlock for us.
It's been so helpful because I think for the longest time we were like, okay, we have this family, mission statement, these family values, but like, how do we actually live it? It's like, it sounds nice on paper. We have them written down somewhere, but like, how do we actually like live it? And so this gave us a tangible way to like, okay, our kids know, like I randomly ask them all the time, what's this month? And they know, they like can recite the months of the year family values for the Roloff family. Yeah. Pretty much most of them.
And
Amber and Bodie.
Feel so
even Bradley knows a lot of them. Like
team.
September, friends and family. Like our focus this month is friends and family. So like this month we're saying yes to the family things and yes to the friend things.
No matter how
more than
hard.
we do during other times of the year, because that is important to us. And it can be so easy to make excuses for those things all the time. But we're choosing to intentionally in September choose that. October isn't, thankfulness or integrity. So I think just having that has been like so helpful. Then we took those family values, aligned them to the months of the year that made sense for us. And then we put like scriptures to them. We put books to them. We put songs to them. We put podcasts to them. We put things to them. So they're like the easy grab resources during the month. And specifically for me, this has been extremely helpful with homeschooling because I start every homeschooling day with Ember with like, what's our family value this month? Let's practice the verse for that family value. Okay, let's read a book that aligns to that family value. Let's read a book about family and friends. And maybe it's a book about inclusion with your friends. And like, it's one of those, it's it's been a super helpful.
And it's not as hard either,
thing. Anyways, but the whole point of this is like, you got to have that to start. So if you don't have your own family mission statement or marriage mission statement, the Marriage Journal can help you do that. The Family Values Planner, it's a digital resource. You can print it off. It can help you do that. It literally like walks you through exactly how to write one for your family. And it's just
and we made it $15.
It's awesome.
Let's make it $5 off for 48 hours as of the posting of this episode. So it's $10.
Love it.
With code podcast. Code podcast.
Wow.
$5 off.
You hear that, Dan?
For 48 hours.
Gonna make that code.
Make it happen, team.
Anyways, okay.
Yeah.
That's enough on that one.
Okay.
Last one.
This
one really
10.
does encompass
you do it. You do it. Go for it.
Me do it?
Yeah, you do it.
Okay. This is just like, I feel like was a huge unlock also for us a few years ago. And it's like letting go of the fear of being cheesy. And this was like the last one when we did our half marathon too. It really does just like encompass all of the other things that we've just talked about on the podcast for the last however long it's been. Because I think so often what holds us back from like really loving each other, from pursuing the principle of sharing, from being humble and being honest, from like having those beautiful moments of unhindered time, from playfulness, is this fear that's cheesy. It's basically like embarrassment. Yeah. It's basically, what's another word for it? This is just what we've called it. We've called it the fear of being cheesy, but like it's letting your ego get in the way.
I was just going to say,
like,
and do you know who or what gets embarrassed? The ego. Yeah.
And so it's basically like, if you can remove that and just like let that go, all of a sudden you can do all of the other things so well. And I think for us, we realized that that was a thing for us in our marriage a few years ago.
We don't want to necessarily conform to what a marriage or relationship should look like or what's like appropriate or socially acceptable or not. It's like we want to be uniquely us. And in order to do so, you cannot say no to you or what you're called to do by a fear of, you name it, we called it being cheesy.
Yeah. And I think that like really comes down to like for us, you and me, like if one of us is going to do something that like could be perceived as cheesy, like we never shut the other person down. Like we invite it. Like you can't let that shame come in because that is like, the fear, shame, guilt, doubt, like cycle is like so bad for your marriage. Right. And so I think the more that you can invite or just like release the fear of being cheesy, the more you can like truly be yourself in your marriage. And the more that your marriage will have these awesome moments that like you wouldn't have had otherwise because, it's too cheesy. Totally. It's like this can apply to anyone in any season of any relationship. You could be dating and need to hear this. Like that's how Jeremy and I could have easily not fallen in love and not started dating and not been married because Jeremy was afraid of being cheesy, giving me a lantern on the first time that we saw each other.
This lantern.
Yeah.
This is literally the lantern that I gave her, that I gave you.
Yeah.
That's why I have it in the background here, that I gave you Christmas 2013.
Well, that's cool. I didn't even mean, like, I wasn't even like, I didn't even realize that was behind us.
Yeah.
Anyways, that's a story that like, it could have been easily a cheesy thing to do. You were afraid of my mom thinking
it almost
it was
didn't happen, but I had this crazy moment with the Holy Spirit, and I just vividly remember him stopping me in the middle of the street, and it wasn't quite audible, but this intense impression in my spirit of turn back around. What kind of love story do you want? It wasn't me saying it or telling myself. It was like this very clear, like I almost like stopped, it was crazy. But yeah, it marked, it led to much of my inspiration of writing our book and all the other things. All right. That's the cap. That's 10. That's awesome. Last thing I want to finish with that's pertinent with us giving 10 things we feel like we want to share or I've learned through 10 years of marriage. And that is that as much as we are a student of each other, a student, and pursuing one another and whatnot, we're also students of life and pursuing life. And the point and why I want to say that is we don't know anything. These are literally just lessons we've learned along the way.
A thing or two.
That we feel like sharing. But the bottom underlying thing is like we want to learn and we want to pursue life. There is no destination. The entire thing is a journey. And so, I just want to make sure that, we're not acting like we know.
Hey, we don't have to give the caveat all the time.
But like, but it's important. But it's Audrey, I know we don't. But it's important. It's important because a lot of people don't share what they need to share, or they're the people that can't hear truth because they have some egoic thing blocking their ability because they want to say, that person's this, or they've labeled the world to such a degree that it's a puzzle they can't make sense of. Yeah. And so that's a big problem. But
big
but you have to actually be on the journey of life in order to learn anything. And so be students. That's what I want to say to sum this up. But
it's good. Okay, 1 decade. If it's half as good as the half we've known.
And here's hail to the rest of the road.